I'm so delighted that you are here with us today. I'm going to mute myself. I think you've got some slides you're going to go through, and then we'll do Q&A.
I do.
So people think about questions you might have for Leigh Goodson.
Yes, and I love the question and answer time, and I'm just so glad to see some friends and then some people I have probably met but may not know as well. So thank you for joining us today. I was excited to get the invitation from Wendy, and she always does a great job with the programming. Your whole team does a fabulous job, Wendy, and TCC is just glad to have a good group of people that have been through the program, including myself. So thank you for everything you do to help develop leadership in our region so that we can be such a strong community. But the thing I love about share screen is you can look at what I'm putting up there if you want to, or you don't have to, because you can always change how many people you can see on the screen. So I'll go ahead and put some slides up, but if you don't care about them and you want to wave to your friends on Zoom instead, that's fine. So I'm going to share this. We have a great marketing team, and so anyway, they always do a good job of putting some things together for me. But I'm Leigh Goodson. I am the, like she said, the 4th president of Tulsa Community College, but also I'm in my 8th year. And so for those of you who knew me when I was on the school board and when I started the role in 2014, wow, time flies, because even as recently as right before the pandemic, I still remember feeling new. And I'm in my 8th year, and I had coffee with Tom McKeon not too long ago, and we talked about how time really flies, and I'm absolutely still enjoying this role, and we have done a great deal to move the institution forward, and we have miles to go before we get to sleep. So people will hear me say that because our work is never really done. But I'll just go over a little bit about where we are now, and some things we've done with COVID, some things we've done with pathways, and then I'd love to open it up for questions. That's absolutely my favorite part of any interaction with a group. So let's see. I've got 2 computers going here, so I know what I'm doing. So I don't know which button I need to push, but just a little bit about TCC. I think everybody knows about Tulsa Achieves. Maybe if you can just do a thumbs up if you've had a family member or you've taken advantage of Tulsa Achieves yourself. I'm going to kind of expand my screen so I can see who's ever been involved in that. Okay, quite a few. My son did Tulsa Achieves. My daughter did concurrent enrollment. And so many families have benefited from the programming that we have available and the academic programming we have available here at Tulsa Community College. About 65% of our students, as you can see, graduate debt-free. Tulsa Achieves is, if you don't know about it, you should, and spread the word to all your friends. Tulsa Achieves, if you graduate from high school, that can be homeschool, any area high school, or if you get your GED and in the same year that you would have graduated and then come straight to Tulsa Community College, you're eligible for Tulsa Achieves. You have to have a 2.0 or higher, and that you have to live in Tulsa County. And so we get a lot of people that ask, is there anyone here live in Wagner Creek or Osage County? We have a little bit of an arrangement with Osage County if you're part of Tulsa Public Schools, but other than that, you have to live in Tulsa County, which can be a little bit of trouble in the Broken Arrow School District. Sapulpa and Sand Springs have some people that live in Creek County, but Tulsa County is who actually helps support the college financially. You'll see in your property tax that TCC charges you some ad valorem. And so it's not that the ad valorem directly pays for Tulsa Achieves, it's just that is our funding base. And so we feel like that's the constituency that we need to give back to. So we have about 25% of our incoming freshmen, 24% come in under Tulsa Achieves. You might ask, why would someone not come in under Tulsa Achieves? Well, maybe they took a year off, or maybe they're a non-traditional student, or maybe they don't live in Tulsa County. So, but that just gives you an idea of how many take advantage of it. And if you do take advantage of Tulsa Achieves, between lowered living expenses and tuition, you save an incredible amount of money. Just in tuition alone, you're saving about $24,000 to $30,000, and that's compared to a state school that's in Oklahoma, not a private or out-of-state school, of course. So it's a really great program for the community, and we can thank Tom McKeon for navigating that. I had great predecessors who built an incredible foundation here at TCC. Just a little bit about the college. We're at 46% minority population, and I think that is something really strong about TCC. We have a lot of programming that helps support our traditionally marginalized students, and we want everyone to know that you belong here. So that's one of our values that I'll go over here in just a minute. Our average age of our student is 24. It used to be more than that. It used to be more like 26 or 27. So we are seeing, because the economy is strong, fewer people are going back to school, and more of our students are traditional age. We have most of our students come in planning to transfer. If you've seen anything about the Tulsa Higher Ed Consortium, which I'll talk about in just a moment, you know that we're working very, very hard as the lower division provider of higher ed in Tulsa. From a public school perspective, you'll know that we're working very, very hard to make sure our students have a seamless transfer, don't lose any credits, and can finish their program in the time that they've allotted. So you'll see a lot in higher education media. So we, of course, just like any other organization, just like architects or attorneys or physicians or people in retail, we have our own publications. And so you'll see in the Chronicle of Higher Ed, Inside Higher Ed, some other higher ed publications, that the number of students going to college has rapidly declined over the past few years. And during COVID, we saw the largest decline we've seen in over a decade. Even with the decline in enrollment, we are seeing an increase in the number of graduates. And that's in large part due to the fact that we have taken on what we call pathways. And it was really started before I got here with Achieving the Dream Work, which is a national nonprofit organization that helps schools layer the best practices for students to be able to complete their degree at a community college and move on to transfer or workforce. We've been layering these practices on one at a time or three at a time. And over the last 6 years, every year we've seen an increase in the number of our students walking across the stage with a completed certificate or associate's degree. So we're really proud of that. And you see that in 21, we had 2,569 graduates, and we just couldn't be more proud of that. So we're very excited. Just this last year, I'll talk about this too. We won some awards from our national organization. There's a lot of text on the next couple of slides, but we wanted to be thorough just about our college more. Small classes, students really appreciate that. We have a lot of support programs like TRIO, which includes retention specialists, special counselors for at-risk students, lots of different wraparound services. Our advisors, you've maybe heard me in a public setting talk about how we raised money, seed money, to expand our number of advisors, and we're institutionalizing that as we move forward and working that into our budget. But it used to be we had one advisor for every 1,100 students, and now we have one advisor for every 350. So we feel like that's a great win. Our wait time for students, it used to be we couldn't make appointments. You would wait 5 or 6 hours. It was terrible, terrible service. And now it's gotten just a lot better. And we're still continuing to build that program and make sure it's the most student-friendly program on the planet. So we We did not last year. Last year we finished our strategic plan. The year before that, we went through a process where we looked at our mission, vision, values, and we really wanted to simplify it. The time before, it was really good, and a lot of what we had before is still in here. It was a really long paragraph, though, and hard for us to message as we went out. So I said to the group, this has to be bottom up. It has to be values that we all really do believe in, and it has to be memorable. It needs to be short enough that when I go out and talk to supporters, legislators, donors, community supporters, employers, that I'm able to talk about what our values are. And I was so proud of the work because I am actually able to say, you belong here, everyone can learn, community is our middle name, quality education is affordable, and excellence is our culture. I'm going to get stuck because they're right in front of me, but usually I can rattle them off. And we tie everything we do to one of our values. Building success through education is our mission, and our vision is an educated, employed, and thriving community. I really was so proud of the work that we did in this space to make sure that what we are doing it is comprehensible by our larger community and not just academics inside of the institution. So, let's see. Wait. Oh, there we go. Okay. This last year, during COVID, I couldn't believe it. It was fabulous. We submitted for a couple of American Association of Community College Awards. They only distribute 7 a year. Okay, this is kind of like, I mean, it's a big deal. I would say, Wendy, it's like your Paragon Awards in Tulsa, right? It's national. There are 1,200. The American Association of Community Colleges represents 1,200 colleges across the United States. It is our big professional organization that lobbies for us and helps us stay on track and helps colleges move along with cutting edge practices. So we applied for both of these. We thought, maybe we'll get one, maybe not. They're very competitive. And I got an email one morning and we had received both. So we had received 2 out of the 7 awards from the American Association of Community Colleges, the Safety Planning and Leadership Award, which a lot of that was due to our COVID practices, and then the Student Success Award, which talks about increasing our outcomes in a fairly short period of time, which is, I would say, the big win we've had in the last 7 years. We've had a lot of wins, but for me, that's the one I'm most proud of, the teamwork that we've put into it.
That's outstanding.
Yeah, it's really, with declining enrollment, it can be a little, you feel a little defeated, but there's a lot of things going on around that. And so I was just really proud for the college to be recognized for the improvement in outcomes. Just a little bit about how we handled COVID. We started off really strong, temperature stations, mandatory masks, cleaning all the time, large spaces for classrooms, everything everybody else did. Our current program, our current protocols, we've taken the temperature stations out because we know that doesn't make much difference. We're not allowed to have a mask mandate, so we don't. We do publish masks expected, and you can get your very own, if you're an employee here, you can get your very own TCC mask with a filter pocket in it, which I use those, and I'm happy to use those. We will have vaccination clinics and COVID testing clinics on campus once a week. And so we're doing everything we can. I think the most important part of our protocols, though, is we do contact tracing. And so if we start seeing a cluster in a classroom this semester, we may take that classroom virtual for a couple of weeks or a week to kind of stop the spread. it's been very contentious, as it has been probably in all of your businesses. What we know from online learning, and for those of you who have students participating in online learning, our students are not, the learning outcomes are not as strong when students are not able to be engaged with other students. So while we don't have every class where it was pre-COVID, and we're kind of working with that schedule to maximize the opportunity for students and at the same time protect each other against COVID, we know that everybody has the opportunity to get a vaccine for the most part, and everybody has the opportunity to wear a more protective mask. I wear a filter in here that turns my cloth mask into essentially a KN95 material is in there. So it's I will say it's been very difficult to kind of ride that fence as we've moved along to reopen the college, but I feel like we've done a good job. I had the opportunity to visit with a faculty member in the hallway the other day, and I asked her, how was it going? And 35 minutes later, I knew a lot more, and I was really grateful for her for sharing that with me. And so I will say our faculty and staff are superheroes here at the college, just with their continued commitment to students. And it has absolutely impacted students in a very difficult way. I think on a national basis, we will see a learning deficit that will have occurred at least for the past 2 years. I think that learning deficit will probably continue to present itself for a few more years. And I know what we know is that our traditionally marginalized populations are going to suffer the most because they won't have the resources or the connectivity to be able to figure out how to make that deficit up. So public education is really focused on how do we continue to close that equity gap and make up for the lost time with all of our students, not just the students that have the resources or the know-how to navigate the system.
Leigh, is that a thing that you're going to have to be addressing as some of the current public school students, high school
Absolutely.
begin to transition into community college?
It'll be I don't think I'm exaggerating. It'll be a 10-year problem.
Wow.
It'll be a 10-year problem. I mean, just as a story, my daughter went to Tulsa Public Schools, and I remember she switched elementary schools. She went from Elliott to Mayo because she's kind of, groovy. And so Elliott was really structured and Mayo is very artsy and what do I say? Are there any Mayo parents on here? I would say not self-driven, but it's multi-age classroom. It's not a Montessori, but it's sort of a public version of that. Okay, just a little bit different. And so I remember when she transitioned there, they and rightly so. I mean, they put her in a math class that maybe she'd skipped too many steps. Okay, and she felt that the whole time, right? And so we ended up having, and I'm a believer in tutors for our students here at TCC, for my own kids, for everybody. But so that happened in a family full of educators. And that deficit happened without COVID in a family full of educators that she felt like she was constantly struggling. Imagine what's happening when you've got a family whose parents are maybe working more than one job. Maybe there's one parent in the household. Maybe there's not a family history of education. There's clearly less resources to pay for outside resources to make up the deficit. And your child has been essentially in and out of virtual learning for 2 years now. And I think that this will go on. I think the tension in the classroom, even if we don't go in and out of the classroom forever, I think that just this unrest in the educational setting will create a deficit that we are going to have to figure out how to make up over time. And it will impact everyone differently. My daughter graduated in 2020. And of course, I've watched that. She missed graduation prom first semester of college, all that. And I think, well, it was bad for her. But then you think about the third graders. Think about the third graders that had to try to pass that third grade reading test, right? So that they could move on. Or think about the kindergartners that had to wear a mask in class while they're learning how to talk. Or, I mean, it's just been, it's just really impacted every age in an adverse way, in my opinion. That is anecdotal, okay? I mean, I read a lot about it, but I'm not bringing statistics with me.
No, I understand. It's been
Yeah.
disruptive to so many fields and
It really
education
has.
so much.
It really has.
Yeah.
So let's see here. Okay, just a little bit about what we're doing now. And when we published our strategic plan in 2020, it really focused on continuing the pathways work. I'll start at the bottom. Continuing the pathways work that greatly expanded the number of graduates we have, even during declining enrollment, which we're really proud of. I think everybody's familiar, I don't know if you are, but the fact that TCC is the provider of lower division public college level courses in Tulsa. So university transfer, when I arrived, I knew that was the next step in our pathways journey, is that university transfer had to be easy, seamless, robust. And really, you see all of our university partners on this screen here. I will say Oral Roberts University is planning on joining the consortium as well. So we're excited about that. But we have programs with every one of these partners. And just recently, of course, you may have heard of College Park, which is our program with OSU, and I'm happy to answer questions about that. Even before College Park, we had Smart Choice with NSU. I'm excited about where Langston's going, and we'll want to partner with their nursing program. Rogers State and OU are governed by the same board, and we've got a 2+2+2 on the OU Tulsa campus now, so that's very exciting. We're looking at expanding our 8-week class offerings. We know that 8-week classes help with retention. We have colleagues across the nation that have gone to about 80 or 90% of 8-week classes, and their retention goes way up. And so that is a big lift for an institution our size. It's been most successful at colleges that were smaller. It's been a little bumpier at the bigger colleges in terms of that transition. So we're looking at that. We are considered a larger college, and so we know student success is better. They take 2 classes at a time, and they can just focus on 2 classes. Or if they need to be part-time, they can just take 1 class at a time and get 2 classes in a semester and be really focused on the content. And of course, online programs have just blown up since COVID started. And so that's just kind of my overview of what's going on. I'm going to stop share and just open it up.
Yeah.
And if people have questions, they can put them in the chat or.
So I'm going to kick off with one that came to my mind as you were talking about Langston and the nursing program.
Yes.
So I've heard a lot about a nursing shortage. I know Tulsa Tech has a lot of health care related programs, but I thought I remembered that TCC does something in the nursing.
We do. Area. It's our largest sector of workforce. We have, of course, nursing RN. Our program is an RN program, and you can move to a BSN, and we have partnerships with NSU, TU, OU, and Langston locally. And so we're excited that OSU is going to be expanding theirs. I think the bigger challenge with nursing, Wendy, I just jumped right in. I'm sorry. I didn't even let you finish that question. I'm so sorry.
You're perfect.
I'm talking a little fast this morning, but I think our biggest challenge with nursing is recruiting people to the profession. It's hard, and there's not a lot of great publicity about how joyous nursing is right now because of our filled ICUs and no beds left in the hospital because of COVID. And when you see an interview with a nurse on television, I'm exhausted. So we want to expand our program, but that expansion is going to also require across colleges that we recruit people to the profession. I think on the other side, we have to help that profession be more rewarding for the people that are doing it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And with so many opportunities available to people, you're seeing it in reduced enrollment kind of across the board.
Not reduced enrollment because it's competitive entry. But as we expand our classes, that means we have to have more applicants.
Got it. Very
right.
Good. So we have a couple of questions about Tulsa Achieves. One in that thread is, are you ever going to open it up to returning students, and what would be the barrier to make that happen? And then related to that, I had a private question about if a student had to go to summer school and they won't graduate with their class until December, can they still get in on Tulsa Achieve? So that specific example.
That December question is interesting. And I don't know the answer to that.
Okay.
But if they want to, so you can contact our admissions office and they would know, and let me pull that up. Let's see if I can, while we're talking here, I'll pull up that info.
But then returning students, what?
Yeah, so returning students, are we ever going to do that? I think honestly, it's cost prohibitive. I mean, we had to kind of pick something that we knew we could consistently afford. We've been cut by the state budget for the last year was the first year we had any money reinstated, and it was earmarked for the endowed chair program. So it wasn't dollars we could use for operating. So we had to kind of offer the program within a scope of what we knew we could sustainably afford.
Great. So Amy asks, she has an open position and it'd be a great entry-level position for a recent Tulsa Community College graduate. Should I contact your career center, and what do you do to help students get employment?
So absolutely contact our career center, and we have started just last year really ramping up our contact with employers and posting jobs for our students. And there is a process inside TCC where those will get advertised to our students. And I would absolutely recommend that you contact Career Services. Great question.
And LaDonna, back to supporting your students, do you offer on-site childcare?
We do not. We do not offer on-site childcare. It is something that we get asked about a lot. And there are a lot of reasons why we would or wouldn't. Mostly, we can't afford to subsidize it, and to charge enough to make it work would really be out of the price range for our students. So we leave that to others, although we have talked to some partners about the possibility of coming onto our campus and that being something they would ultimately help us provide on campus. But we will probably not get in. In fact, we got out of the childcare business. We used to have a child development center on West Campus. And what we found is that students weren't really using it. It was employees. And we were, while it was a great benefit, we were subsidizing it to the tune of several $100,000 a year. So as the budget cuts came along, that was a change that we had to make.
I love the idea, though, that it could be a potential creative partnership with a nonprofit or.
Yes, yeah, that would be much better for us. There's a huge insurance. It's not our core business. And just in terms of the risk and insurance, which I know those of you in any business setting know about that, that was just something we didn't feel like we could take on.
Well, LaDonna, when she gets an idea, often carries it to fruition. So she'd be happy to help manifest that for TCC.
Right.
So Kristen says, in an effort to diversify the legal profession, do you have any legal career pathways, paralegal certificates, associate's degree into TU law? And she would love to make this happen. So
yeah, so we do have a paralegal program here at TCC, and it stays fairly full. And our paralegals, from what I understand, do great work out there in the community after they've graduated. And then our advisors, you know, any academic program can be pre-law. There are some that are better than others in terms of preparing students. And so our academic advisors work with students to do that and then transfer to a 4-year program so that they'll have enough hours to apply for law school.
What I love about all of these questions is that people are willing to back them up with action.
I
their
love it.
leadership
Yes,
Tulsa.
we've got a lot of partners right here.
So one thing I was really interested in hearing you say is that even at the community college level, when you have online classes, you're seeing a little bit of a lag in people doing the uptake. And we hear so much about online being the future of education.
Right.
What are you all thinking about continued online post-pandemic, and how does that affect your physical plant, which is really substantial and throughout our whole community?
Sure. We have 2 million indoor square feet.
Wow.
We do. It's a very large physical plant. And those classrooms have been designed for small classrooms to keep our ratio small, which is something we think we do a good job at. We have some larger courses, but for the most part, we have smaller classrooms. We are talking about that. I think what you'll see is more blended courses where they meet once a week in person and do the rest of the work either online or meet once a week in person and once a week in Zoom. And I think you'll see more of that. I think that will be somewhat of a permanent change, semi-permanent change that will happen in education. But the totally online does not yield even close to the same results as in person. And now with just kind of some of the tension and anxiety around in-person learning, we think that the best approach for just inching forward is probably to emphasize a few more blended sections.
That's really interesting. We're all kind of figuring out how we're going to be adapting.
We are. I went to an event last week. I mean, I go to events. I don't really have, I want to see people, but also my role requires that I'm present in the community. And it's hard. You walk in, you're the only one with a mask, or you're one of 10 out of 1,000 or 500 that has a mask on. And then then you hear that there's people that were at that event that don't feel well now and they were vaccinated. And so you just balancing all this and figuring out how to do it is really difficult. And I think, in our state too, it's been contentious to say the least, right? And so we just move forward the best we can.
Well, you're in good company in that every leader I talk to is contending with that, from people with small businesses who say, I have a employee who'll quit if I have a mask requirement. I have an employee who'll quit if I don't,
Yes. Yes.
So,
or I have employees that'll quit if they have to come back to the office.
Yeah, that's true too. That's true.
And so I think about, and I know there was an article in the New York Times, I think it was not this last weekend, but maybe the weekend before, and it talked about how we're going to be 2 years out of the office in some of the high rises. And I know One Gas isn't back yet. One Oak and One Gas usually share some of their practices, and those are two of the most populated buildings in the downtown area, and they are approaching 2 years out of the office. And just places like that, I don't know what it's like there, but places like that, the article talked about how we don't, people are saying, I'm never coming back. So go ahead and do what you want, and then I'll figure the rest out myself. So I think as places decide to come back, there will be this huge disruption regarding the workforce. I know that we've had that here at TCC. I have said we're coming back. We are developing a telework policy, but it won't be one where people telework full time or anything like that. And we have employees that are saying, I won't come back if I have to be in the office. And okay, we say, okay, because our work is not fully remote. That's not the population we serve. And so we're working to have that balance and meet that tension where it is. But we will lose some in both directions.
Yeah, and I think the larger point for everyone on the call is, there's this period of time where we say we are still in the pandemic, but it's obviously evolving because of you were talking about the access your students have to vaccination,
Mhm.
high quality masks, to the information we have. And then there's going to be the post-pandemic period, which endemic, probably some level of this virus continuing to pop up in hotspots. But we've learned so much, and our expectations about learning, our expectations about work, all of those things have changed. I wanted to tell you, Matt Rogers, I just wanted to express appreciation for the Tulsa Achieves program. He graduated in 2007 and was part of the inaugural program. And here he is.
Oh, wow. That's
He
awesome.
graduated debt-free from OSU in 2011.
That's awesome.
Super successful guy, part of our Leadership Tulsa family. And Michael says that Tulsa is starting to lose talent to other states that are more open to remote work and paying better. And it's tough right now for some.
It is definitely tough right now. We're doing everything we can to be as flexible as possible. And we have to serve our students. I think it's interesting, though, as one thing in our discussion is most of the frontline workers, their job isn't really eligible for remote work, right? But the supervisors, theirs might be, but you need the supervisors there to make sure it's all happening. And so it's in the public education environment where we're working with a local constituency. It's been a trick, and I have no friend nationally that isn't feeling this same tension. I did get one person that just messaged me privately, so I want to read this real quick while you're talking and see. And it's about the interior design program. We are teaching that out. That is right. We ended that program just because of the lower demand. And so we go through a process of program review, and we have to invest our limited resources in the most in-demand programs. And so we'd be happy to receive any feedback on how we can achieve that workforce differently rather than having full-time faculty dedicated to it. But yes, we have had to make some choices. I don't know, right after I started, we had to shut down the horticulture program, which cost us about $350,000 a year to maintain. And we only had 4 or 5 graduates from it a year. And the state regents have a graduation requirement in terms of number of graduates per year that have to graduate. And then there's also just a market demand requirement for the major as well. And so we go through that process, and we add programs based on market demand, and we let programs go based on market demand. So if there's a different way we can accommodate that workforce need, I would be happy to entertain that and take it to our faculty for consideration.
Well, Leigh, I think I speak for all of us. We appreciate the role that Tulsa Community College plays in getting more graduates and workforce-ready people out into our community. We appreciate the role you play because it's not easy to lead any sort of, even a tiny little institution like Leadership Tulsa is challenging. I can only imagine how having 2 million square feet of inside classroom space and all the employees.
I love it. I love it. And sometimes on overwhelming days, I say it's a beast.
It is a beast.
It's a beast. But I do love it. And we make the best decisions that we can with the information we have. And I will say the rapid nature of the decision making we've had to make during the pandemic has probably been the most challenging part of it.
Indeed, for all of us. So thank you, Leigh. Thank you, audience,
so
for
much.
Being here.
Thank you.
Lots of nice thank you notes in the chat thread. So
I
will post this soon to our recordings, and I appreciate everyone being here.
All right. Thank you.